The Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast is proudly sponsored by New Vision.
My team, Conda, power. I love the power. I love the power.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast, a show about all things Port Adelaide Footy Club. I'm your host, Macca 19, and joining me, as always, we got Fishing Rick.
Macca, mate, how you going?
Oh, not bad. Not bad.
You sound very excited.
Mate, how good was that?
Oh, I was over the moon. I'm joyous, can't you tell?
Incredible. What a weekend.
It was fantastic. It was
Brilliant.
beautiful. Poetry.
Fantastic. Absolutely. And our guest for this evening, one of the forum favourites in El Scorcho.
G'day, boys. G'day. Beautiful weekend. Can't believe I got on for this game to review. Can't ask for much more than that. It was perfect, basically.
That's it.
Brilliant.
Look, before we get started with the normal sort of formalities of the podcast, first final at Adelaide Oval, I want to hear about your experiences of the day. Rick, buddy, I'll start with you, mate.
Yes, what did I do? I parked at the Parklands in the 10-hour parking zone, not the event parking area, Macca, and wandered over and went and had a beer in the tent for the first time. And I didn't know what any of the Big Footy posters looked like, so I couldn't find anybody. And I went up and was waiting for my old man and watching the 5AA crew. And this guy comes up and goes, effing idiot, bloody effing S. Rose not there. And I said, yeah, it is actually. And so we had a quick chat and I said, oh, you like Port, obviously? And I love him. And I said, here, take a card. And it was bloody Christo.
Oh, there you go.
From Big Footy. And so I'm here soliciting out the podcast to someone who's a diehard listener anyway. So, but it was, so it was great meeting him and having a quick chat. And then I went up and just said g'day to Timmy G quickly just to thank him for coming on the podcast. And then we went up to the, now I can't remember it, it's the Gil Langley room, I think. So I bought a ticket with my...
Fancy pants.
With my, well, it was the only ticket I can get because technically I'm not a member with the stuff that I buy. So we went up there and, it was fantastic actually. So that was that's on the left hand, if you're facing the Riverbank stand, it would be on the right-hand side, I guess, or the western side, that corner, behind those glass screens. And I've got to say, fantastic viewing, great atmosphere with the windows open. It just rocketed around, and it was, just high enough, but not in the nosebleed section to just really appreciate. You could see the game unfolding. You could see where the spare players were, and you could see what the players were going to do from that position, and it was amazing. You could tell. We were switched on from the start, but we were just choosing the right option at the right time every time. When you're lower to the ground, you just probably don't pick up those things all the time. And it was fantastic and never tear us apart. It was amazing. The crowd did a fantastic job. All the supporters should be proud. I flicked Jackson a quick Trengo message today to say well done and what do you think of the atmosphere? And he said it was the loudest thing he's ever experienced in his life. So I think all the supporters and even the Richmond supporters should be very proud of how we performed and behaved on Sunday.
Yep, spot on, mate. El Scorcho, what about you, buddy?
I went to, I basically parked the same place I always do. I've got a mate who lives in North Adelaide. We had a barbecue before the game. Basically, we showed up there about 12:30, and a few forum faces were there, including Dr. Phil and Lightning Rod. We're both there, so that was good fun. We walked down. Beautiful day for it. The walk was really nice. We got our sunscreen on because I'm sure I would have been burnt otherwise. Couldn't ask for a better day, especially with our game style. We sat in the nosebleed section for us, which was row B of the, we usually sit on the fence. So sitting in the second row was it was a lot further away, but we managed to deal with it. So we were only a couple of bays around from where we usually sit. So it was very similar for us.
Nice.
Really good seats, good people around us, which was good. Just the day was amazing. The pre-game, hearing the Richmond fans get into it was really good. And, there was quite a number of them there, probably I'd say about, close to 10,000. And they were sitting directly above us in the Black Diamond seats. and they were quite noisy when they were singing their song, but that was about as noisy as they got all day. And they didn't get close to us after that as soon as the Never Tear Us Apart started and stuff like that. So, yeah, the atmosphere was amazing. The first quarter was amazing. The whole day was amazing. So, yeah, loved it.
Brilliant.
It was funny, though. Sorry, Macca. I was going to say just quickly, when they did sing the Richmond song, I was thinking, shit, there's a fair few people here supporting Richmond, because they actually cranked out a bit of noise until our song came on, and then the noise was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, given that we'd usually have 49 of the 50,000 people there, to have probably maybe low 40s in terms of pure port supporting numbers, it was louder than I can remember. And I've been to the other two games that have been record setting, so yeah, amazing amount of noise.
Yep, it was unbelievable. We were able to get a group of about 40 tickets, I think it was, together in one particular bay for all our mates.
Do that?
You know the right people and things happen, mate.
Do you know the right people and underhanded deals were done?
Very lucky to know the right people, and yes, underhanded deals were done. So we got 40 tickets together in one particular group in the middle tier of the riverbank stand, up near sort of like the WAG section where there was all these like players, brothers and girlfriends and all sorts of stuff. And we were sitting, we had Bruce Jeté of Adelaide United sitting in front of us, and Rebecca Morse and all these other people like Tony Mockbell, or the guy that, sorry, not Tony Mockbell, the guy that played Tony Mockbell on Underbelly was sitting just next to us, and all sorts of stuff. So it was lucky, yeah. So we were all together, and we just had the best time of our lives. It was just incredible. The atmosphere that was there was, the atmosphere at our games all this year has been electric, but that just took it up another notch this week. I mean, it got going well before Not Giving In. The power chant went around the ground, and then the players ran out, and then Never Tear Us Apart was incredible. And I think it was so important that we started as well as we did, just to get the crowd pumping, and we didn't let up all day. It was just incredible. The only thing that would have made it better was probably if my dad was there. He wasn't able to go. That would have made it the perfect day. But outside of that, it was just the most brilliant day I've ever had at the football, I think. It was just bloody wonderful.
Good work.
Just everything, the atmosphere, what happened on field, it was just such an enjoyable day. It was bloody fantastic.
Yeah, that's right.
Couldn't ask for anything better.
No.
Well, let's get into our love and hate, which is one thing we loved, one thing we hated. In and around Port Adelaide this week. Scorcho, buddy, I'll start with you, mate.
Okay, the love, I mean, it's just the first quarter. It was said lots of times on the forum, but just to come into a final where we know Richmond are going to be gunning for us, and we've probably had a bit of an issue with really punishing teams when we've been on top, and just to everything went right for us. It was brought up again on the forum, but it was like the Geelong Grand Final where just everything seemed to bounce our way. They'd muck around with the ball, and then we just get it and we just go down and score. We just waltz down and score over and over again. I think it's at quarter time they were beating us in most of the key stats. Apart from, I think, marks, they had more kicks, more handballs, more clearances, more contested possessions, more uncontested possessions. Not by a lot in any of those, apart from obviously free kicks, which was 12-3 at quarter time. But they were beating us in every stat, but every time we get the ball, we'd go and score. It was amazing to watch. And if I had to pick a hate, I would probably say, I mean, the Guernsey stuff was frustrating to start with, but I think we sorted it out, and I'm really happy with the way it went. If there was ever any doubt that I'm a big fan of the prison bars, and I would straight away swap them for our home jumper and make it our home jumper all the time if I could. And if there was ever any lingering doubt I had about maybe keeping our current home Guernsey, it was blown out of the water by that game. I'd be very, very happy to see us wear them every week. It was beautiful.
Oh, it would be lovely. It would be great. Rick, buddy, what about you, mate?
You don't want his hate?
I thought that was his hate,
It was
which is almost a love as well.
The only other hate I would have was
It was two loves, really.
It was two loves. The only other hate I would have would be the injury to White. Hopefully he can get on. Seeing Schultz go down there, and yeah, that's right. Or hopefully with a broken jaw he can. They're saying he might be able to, but seeing Schultz go down at one point, holding his shoulder and hamstring at the same time, was a bit scary. Seeing Hartley go off with cramps and holding his hands was scary, but. Yeah, White's the main one, I guess. That's the only really negative out of the day, isn't it? That he was subbed early.
Pretty much, yep.
Good work.
I agree with that.
I loved multiple things, Macca. I'll try and contain it to only a few. I love the fact that we were able to win without Jasper having to dominate a game for a change. He had a quiet game, yes, but the boys were able to cut the slack that he normally provides. So I mean, I thought that was fantastic. I love the fact of the noise, the volume, the interaction the crowd provided for the atmosphere, which obviously fueled the players as well. I thought that was beautiful. I loved Cam O'Shea's beard. I've got a newfound respect for Cam O'Shea now. That manscaped beard is a thing of beauty, and while he's got that beard, he's in our team because. Beards are in, my friends, and got to respect the beard. So I loved Cam O'Shea's beard. And most importantly, I love the fact that our players played football to how our previous players who used to wear that traditional Guernsey would have played football.
Yeah.
The courage they played with on Saturday was the most courageous I've seen that group of players play. Most of them have been at our club now for 5 years. Jakey needs bump on Martin to clear the path for the ball for someone to pick it up was fantastic. His ability to take on larger and smaller or whatever players, and not just Jake, but the whole team willing to put their body on the line. Hamish Hartlett, well done, man. We picked him to have a big game, and it wasn't a massive game in numbers, but his influence was outstanding. And that passage of play in the second quarter, where everyone went up and went around him, and so they should, was just a thing of beauty. And those boys respected that Guernsey to aplomb, and they should be commended for that.
That's a lot of love.
It is a lot of love, but it was a loving day. And the hate, I tell you what, if there wasn't a mandate to try and keep Richmond in the game, I don't know what the hell was going on. The inconsistency with what they were paying Richmond to us almost spoiled my afternoon by 2%, but we were so dominant, their bias didn't even actually matter. And Eddie Maguire, piss off, man. I'm sick of you talking about our jumper. He's got no right to be controlling what another AFL club wears. And that's the problem with the AFL at this point in time. Too many Victorian influencers are actually getting on their high horse and telling what other clubs, especially that aren't from Victoria, what they can and can't do. For him to be sprouting off that he made Port Adelaide sign a contract that will wear it once and that's it, and the AFL signed off on it is bullshit, right? This is supposed to be...
considering we've worn it like 5 times now.
Yeah. But it's just rubbish. It's just rubbish.
He's as bad as Kiss. I mean, how many comebacks can you have?
Yeah, I was saying John Farnham.
This is the last time ever?
Yeah, but...
sorry, this is the last time ever.
Yeah.
No, next time will be the last time ever.
I've heard last time... Yeah, that's right. He said one time and then we wore it twice and then 3... it's just... It's absolutely meaningless. I think he's probably just trying to kind of put forward, Collingwood's case as the big club in the league and trying to kind of maintain an aura of being in control. It's very clear that he had nothing to do with this, but he used his position in the media to, I guess, make it look like he was facilitating it when I don't think he had anything to do with it. I'd be surprised if he was even asked. Yeah.
Spot on. Absolutely. Look, my love this week is pretty simple. Never piss off Port Adelaide, I think. From the prison bar, I'm not afraid to say I teared up when we ran out onto the ground. That was just, what a phenomenal Guernsey that is. I just love it. From the prison bar to the emphatic way that we started the game, there was a lot of love. But for me, my love this week, it's got to be the atmosphere and the way that it really helped to maintain that momentum on field in the first quarter. I'm a huge believer in the crowd having both a positive and negative impact on sporting events, and there's plenty of examples of that. I think you only have to look at the 2004 qualifying final against Geelong as a bit of an example of where the crowd was really nervous pre-game. We'd lost the last 3 qualifying finals in the previous 3 years, and Choppy comes out and kicks a goal from outside 50 in the first minute. The crowd erupts, and they were just huge for the rest of that game. And I thought it was the same story yesterday. From the haunting rendition of Never Tear Us Apart to the wall of noise that came every time we laid a tackle or kicked a goal. I never thought anything would beat the 04 prelim in terms of sort of noise level, but yesterday, the noise when Jakey Need kicked that goal on the run in the first quarter was just out of this world. I mean, it was just brilliant.
Absolutely. That was the moment of the day for me. That was where we went from, having a really good quarter to absolutely smashing them off the park. I think that was, it was the moment of the day. That was brilliant.
Absolutely. Spot on. And my hate this week, it's got to be the way that the Maggies lost the game on Saturday night. I hate losing to Norwood, and I really hate losing to Norwood even more when we're 3 goals up with 10 minutes left. They just didn't try anything at all to stop their momentum in that last sort of 10-15 minutes. I thought it was really disappointing.
I hope you've learned a valuable lesson, Macca.
What?
I was sitting there. I saw you stand up and do the wah-wah, wiping your eyes to the Norwood cheer squad when we were 3 goals up. And I was thinking, man, you're a courageous man. I don't do that sort of stuff. Don't want to...
Oh, it was great. It was great. They were whinging like anything. That was an interesting game.
You removed eye contact after Norwood hit the front again, though. I'll just look straight forward from here on in.
Yeah, my eyes glazed over after that. Oh, well. These things happen, don't they?
We got the power to win, power to roll. Come on, for Adelaide aggression. We are the power from Paul.
Look, let's go straight into the AFL review. Don't poke the bear, it might react. Didn't we react in style? The scoreline, I thought, flattered Richmond in the end. 20 goals 12 to 11 goals 9. It was a 57-point victory. We led by as much as 81 points at three-quarter time. Jakey Need kicked 3 stunning goals, and we had a number of multiple goal kickers. Brady Ebert, Gus Monfries, Jared Polek, Jay Schultz, Westhoff, Wines and Wingard all kicked 2 goals each. To start with, what was your feeling pre-game? Were you feeling pretty confident, or were you a bit nervous?
I guess I was confident if we turned up, we'd win. And I thought, based on the Carlton game and the Freo game, I thought we were switched back on after our kind of late season lull there. I thought if we didn't turn up, it would be close. But if we turned up, we'd win and win comfortably. I didn't quite expect it to be that comfortable, but I was pretty happy going in that we had that measure if we showed up, which we did.
Yep.
So good news.
Yep, I knocked back plenty of beers before the game started, so it didn't bother me. And but no, my nervous genes were stripped off on Saturday, and I had my confident pants back on by the time I got to the Port Norwood game, and I was pretty confident there on in. And when we saw the crowd come out and do what they did, I thought the boys would be pumped. And after the first 2 goals, you could tell that they were pretty confident.
Just to shut their crowd out of it as well, as we mentioned earlier, their crowd was, they did reasonably well before the game. They were pretty noisy for, not what we, I guess, used to at Adelaide Oval. But, we shut them up very quickly by kicking, 7 goals in a row to start the game. And that was really important. As we said earlier, the crowd can get into it, and they're the kind of crowd that have been so desperate, I guess, for some success that they travel in numbers, and they really, obviously means a lot to them, but to get them out of the game really early on, as we did, was fantastic.
Yep.
So what about you, Macca? Were you nervous still pre-game?
Mate, I had my nervous pants on. I was shitting my dacks a little bit there. Not afraid to say that. But look, that soon went away. As soon as we kicked that first goal, I knew we were switched on, and we were never going to lose that game from that moment on. But as we said in the preview, it could have gone either one of 2 ways. Richmond could have been absolutely chock full of confidence and come out and did what we ended up doing in that first quarter, and just come and storm the game and make it over at quarter time. Or they could have experienced a huge mental letdown because they already achieved their goal of making the finals. And it's very, very hard to reevaluate those goals in such a short space of time. And I always think back to the 2002 season when it was Port versus Brisbane, all gunning for top spot, and the MCG rule was in place, and we just had to win that last game to get top spot to ensure that we had a prelim final if we won the first week, and then we ended up stuffing it up the week after that, and we didn't get that home prelim anyway. And I feel that Richmond sort of experienced that same sort of thing where they achieved their goal and they just couldn't back it up this week. And as I said, as soon as we kicked that first goal, it was game over. I knew we were switched on and we were never ever going to lose that game from that moment on.
Is the rumour true that you were actually worried that Troy Chaplin was going to have a best on ground performance?
That is absolute rubbish. He was never ever going to have any sort of impact in that game.
I thought he was one of our best players.
Sorry?
I thought he was one of our best players.
Oh, absolutely. If we want to do the Troy Chaplin laughing session now, then let's go for it. He was absolutely woeful. That was one of the most embarrassing finals performances I've ever witnessed.
Oh.
The booing when he got the ball, followed by the Bronx cheering when he kicked it straight to one of our players, which happened multiple times, was very, very satisfying. And I think after the sting had gone out of the game, probably after halftime, I guess, we clearly took the foot off the throat a little bit. Just being able to boo Chaplin and watch him just crumble under pressure, which is a very Chaplin thing to do and a very Richmond thing to do, was very satisfying after the kind of stuff he said about the club.
Spot on. I think it was the Troy Chaplin comedy hour in the first half there. Just especially in the first quarter, I watched him intently just to see what was going to happen, and I think he had 4 opponents in the first 15 minutes, and they all kicked goals on him. That's how bad he was in the first 15 minutes, and it just summed up. It all came to that huge crescendo when he started jogging after the ball, and Schultz knocked him over, and he fell on his ass, and then we kicked another goal. I think that was our 5th goal in a row, and it was just one of the most laughable things I've ever seen, I think.
Well, how bad was his physical presence in the game? It was pathetic. I mean,
non-existent.
I think Chad Wingard just broke a pea-hearted tackle just to waltz into an open goal. It was either him or Need, one of the two. But yeah, he just had no physical presence at all. And for a guy that's supposed to be, 6'5" or whatever he is, he's bloody soft as butter.
And
that's it. I mean, Tribey was sitting behind me again, staring at the back of my head, and he said, 10 minutes in, he went from standing Westhoff to standing Jakey Need. And Tribey said, doesn't that just sum up Troy Chaplin? And it absolutely does. I mean, he just has no physical presence. He just can't, it's the classic, looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I used to get really angry at when he was with us was, there'd be an opposition player under a hospital ball, and you think, if you're charging into a player under a hospital ball, you either take the ball and kill the contest, or you take the man. And he used to just float past and let guys run off, you just saw everything that we used to see about him and get frustrated with. All happened in that game, and it was just a classic Troy Chaplin game.
I think that Daniel Rich moment sort of spooked him a little bit, where he sort of ran through Daniel Rich, got suspended for a couple of games, and he was never the same after that.
No, yeah, I agree. I think he started to kind of take a step before he go in, but I mean, it just went way overboard. There's being careful not to hurt people, and there's just being a complete fairy around every contest you go into for the rest of your career. It was Nathan Looney, Nathan Cracker type stuff where he just wasn't getting in. Sorry, when I say Nathan Cracker, I mean old Nathan Cracker, not recent Nathan Cracker. But especially as a leader of the club, which he purported to be, and he was. I'm not sure if he was a vice captain at one point, but I know he was definitely considered a leader. And when young players see a leader doing stuff like he was doing, that's why probably why we were so bad for so long.
I think, as I wrote on the board today, I think he's just the classic front runner in the AFL at the moment, where if his team is going well, Chaplin looks $1 million because he can do the things that his teammates allow him to do. He can zone off and take those uncontested marks, and he looks fantastic. He can point his finger up the ground, kick it that way, and he looks like a bloody champion. And but when his team's under the pump, he never ever stands up. Like I can't remember a single game that he played for Port Adelaide where he changed the course of the game mid-match.
Yeah, what about that game where he took the mark right out in front of goals to win us the game from 15 metres out, and kicked it out on the full. That influenced the game. Not in our favour.
You look at guys like Tommy Jonas and the roles that he's been able to do mid-match. I think of the first showdown last year where he went on to Taylor Walker, who was killing us, and he didn't get another kick for the rest of the day. You look at Jackson Trengove and the jobs that he can do in multiple positions. Troy Chaplin's never done anything like that.
No, yeah. Jonas, his physical. Jonas is a very complete defender. His physicality one-on-one is amazing. And to compete with guys who are 10 centimeters and 15 kilos bigger than him. But then he also, probably when he first started with us, he didn't quite have that offensive side, and he played within himself, so he wasn't turning the ball over like Chaplin was. But he's developed such a good attacking side, and he's a really good part of our rebounding defense. And 12 marks yesterday. Just nothing went past him. It was amazing.
Yep. That's it. Well, enough of talking about garbage, and I want to talk about that first quarter and where that sits in sort of the pantheon of the Port Adelaide Football Club moments. For me, that there's only two quarters that are really comparable to that, and that's the 94 Grand Final, obviously the fourth quarter, and also the 1990 prelim, the first quarter against North Adelaide, where I think we kicked something like 13 goals to 1, and the game was over at quarter time. But that to me was just the perfect quarter of football that you could possibly play.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Couldn't agree more. That's just given the build up, given how Richmond were going to come at us and the hype of the game, to come out and just take a game away from a team like that. You've seen it happen. I think it came up on the boards. Tribey brought up the Essendon Gold Coast game, and they almost scored 100 points in that quarter against Gold Coast, back when Gold Coast were very new. But it was along those lines. We didn't score 100 points, but if we hadn't had 9 less free kicks, I think it may have gotten to 70 or 80 points. It was just a complete dismantling. Job done at quarter time, basically. In a big final like that. Amazing stuff. The best I can remember.
You had the non-finals quarter against Brisbane where we kicked 10 goals to Brisbane's nothing. That was a pretty pure quarter of football, but I guess there wasn't really the pressure on the line as there was in a finals game. The first quarter was just making me have memories to the 89 grand final with North Adelaide. Obviously, Richmond ended up kicking more of a score than that, but just the complete dominance over a side, even for the first half, it was almost comparable to that game. And a few people that were in the same room as us were making reference to the 89 grand final against the Roosters. It was just a complete dominant display, and like you said, set up the game from there. Halfway through the first quarter, you knew there was no chance that they were going to come back. So I guess the question is, how did we get so dominant in that first quarter?
Look, I think everything we've been critical of on this podcast over the last couple of months, we fixed and did it to the best of our ability. And I'm talking about our tackling, which was just absolutely ferocious. It's probably the best I've ever seen our club at AFL level tackle. I thought our handballing was phenomenal. I know I said about 3 or 4 months ago that I thought our handballing skills, especially in close, were the best in the league. And from that moment on, our handballing skills went absolutely down the toilet. But, that was the best we've had all year. Just we hit the target with those hands in contest every single time. And our goal kicking, which has been a bit of a disaster over the last 3 months, was just ludicrous. We were kicking goals from everywhere.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think the thing to remember about this game is that it was a team that fell out of the 4 by having a bit of a rough patch. I think we're a top 4 quality side. Obviously, you can't just say that; you have to get there. So that's what. We'll finish off this year and we'll make sure next year we do. But Richmond were also a side that fell into the 8, and they were a bit like Geelong this year in that they had a lot of wins in a row, obviously 9 to finish the season, but they weren't dominating wins. They played us at our worst point and had an easy win over us when we weren't in our least competitive game of the year, in my opinion. They played Sydney when Sydney had the queue in the rack, and the rest of their games they won, but they didn't really smash teams off the park or really asserting dominance. They just kind of got over the line, and Geelong were doing the same thing. So Richmond kind of fell into the 8, and we fell out of the 4, and that's probably you're looking at a team that is borderline finals quality versus a team that should be competing for a flag, and I think that's what you saw. I mean, obviously everything. We obviously came out breathing fire, and they came out with a bit of a letdown after the week before. But the golfing quality of the teams was very apparent.
And all our leaders stood up in that first quarter. Boki had a massive quarter. The guys down back, Trengoven and Homsch and Carlisle had fantastic quarters. Guys like Ebert and Hartler in the midfield were just dominating. And then there's a bloke called Jakey Need who just had one of the most magnificent quarters of football I've ever witnessed.
Yeah, look, he's been amazing since he's come in, and he's grown every game. And, I think a lot gets made of his size, but I think he's a little bit more nuggety this year than he was last year. Seeing him put that bump on Dustin Martin to knock him off the ball was amazing. And he just seems to be able to compete physically in a way that he couldn't really do last year. And you think he's only going to get a little bit bigger and stronger and smarter about the way he uses his body. And he's such a clever player, got a lot of heart and makes good decisions. We've got a real player on our hands, and he continues along the development path he has over the last year. So
that's
very exciting.
Yeah, our passion, I think, which is what made us dominant. So we played passionate football, and our small players, which was one of our calls in the preview. Having an influence from our small forwards, for example. I think Chad Wingard in the first quarter leading tackler with 5 tackles, and that was probably the largest output we've had from Chad probably in the last couple of months as well. So even though he didn't necessarily impact the board or take those high-flying marks at the beginning like he did at the end, his tackling and forward pressure was just intense, as was the whole team. Defensively, we were structurally sound. Obviously, we must have read the Richmond playbook. We had the loose man, and Richmond didn't counter our loose man. They didn't make Tom Jonas accountable in that first quarter, which was staggering. After our dominance and the first 3 goals and the run we were creating, I would have thought they might have switched the play to go maybe man on man to try and make us a bit more accountable and lock the game down. Instead, they just sort of let the game free flow and stay open. And it was almost crazy coaching in a way. And I think one of the biggest insults for me, probably the last day, is the incessant bashing on Cochin for kicking into the breeze, because the way we played, the breeze was negligible to our score, because we were just running and carrying with fluid ball movement. Even though the breeze was obviously an advantage, it wasn't the be-all and end-all for us dominating that quarter.
Yeah,
no, you're pretty well right there. I think the criticism of Cochin choosing to kick against the breeze is fair enough, because it was a bit of a baffling decision. But the thing that gets me is a lot of Richmond supporters and other people as well have said, oh, well, if we kicked with the wind, we would have been 5 or 6 goals up instead, which is just ludicrous. I mean, if we had have kicked against the breeze, as we saw in the second quarter, we still would have been 5 or 6 goals up ourselves anyway.
Yeah, look, it was just, I don't think it would have mattered. I think what Cochin and what the Richmond coaching staff were probably thinking was it's going to be contested and tight early, being a final. We know that not only was there the breeze, but there is one scoring end and a non-scoring end at Adelaide Oval, with the closed end being a lot easier to score at. And I think he thought maybe it'd be a contested first quarter and break open in the second quarter, and them having then 2 quarters at the scoring end would matter. But it was just shock and awe. They just, we just completely overwhelmed them, and as you said, they didn't seem to counter anything. I think by the time they realised what was going on, it was game over. But by the time they could put anything into place to stop what we were doing and man up on our spare or do anything, it was just we'd just done too much. We just put too much score on the board, and we'd gotten too far ahead psychologically for anything they could really do in the coach's box to make too much of a difference.
The other thing I thought was interesting was that all the players that have needed a rocket, that we've been pretty critical of, they all came to play in massive fashion yesterday. I mean, Jared Pollock played probably his best game for a few months. Same with Gus Monfrey, same with Chatty Wingard. Hoff was fantastic. Lobe, who got completely worked over earlier this year by Marich was dominant in the ruck. Jakey Need was fantastic, and Brad Ebert had his best game in the second half of the year as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really good to see all those guys step up. Polek especially. I've been quite critical of Ebert. I think he just hasn't quite had the output in the second half of the season. Hasn't been quite as reliable with his marking and his disposal. But yeah, he just seemed to be in the right place at the right time again in this game, which was his, I guess, the story of his first half of the year was he would just be where we needed him as a link man, taking in his set mark, all that sort of thing. And it's been missing a bit from his game, although the effort's been there. It seemed to come back in a big way yesterday. He just seemed to be in the right spot at the right time for us, which is when he's at his best, that's what he's doing, I think.
Yep.
Don't discount ET's love for Ebert, his gut-breaking line running. I think he was one of our best players in the first half. And I mean, for me, if we're going to assess player performances, it really is all around what happened in the first half because, I mean, the second half was just sort of chump change and junk time, really, killing time.
Yeah.
But Ebert was one of our best players in that first half, and his run-down tackle in the first or second quarter, I think it might have been, but just his link-up play and continual ability to run hard, I thought it was his best game in 2.5 since the Sydney game against Kennedy. It was fantastic to see him back in full flight. And I think the key, Macca, and I think you pointed it out, I think, was it in the preview this week or last week? You wanted our leaders to stand up, and all our leaders did stand up this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was last week against Freo that I said that, but yeah.
Week later, but the most important time for them to stand up.
Oh,
I thought we did a really good job defensively on a number of their players as well. I thought Cochrane was absolutely thrashed by Kane Corns. Westhoff did a fantastic job on Chaplin. Schultz killed Rance. Carlisle did a brilliant job on stopping Junk Time Jack. And even though Deledio had heaps of the ball, I thought he had a real sort of marginal influence offensively. It seemed that all his disposals were seemingly in the back half, I thought.
Yeah, I just didn't really notice Deledio. He had a lot of the ball, but as you say, just no damage at all. Just on Corns on Cochin, it was the second time in 3 weeks that he's gotten a player of that caliber because he did the same thing to Murphy where, halfway through the game, Cochin was taking a swing at him and, just getting so frustrated with Corns' tagging that he was lashing out. And, you look at Cochin and Murphy as two guys who have won the award that Gray just won, the Coaches Association trophy in the last couple of years, or I think 2011, 2012. So two very good quality midfielders who have been taken out of the game to a point where they've been taking swings and jumper punching Kane Corns. He's as good as he's ever been at tagging.
Absolutely.
To cut, I mean, look, my opinion on Richmond's good players is that they don't stand up when it matters anyway. But to cut a guy out to the point where he's so frustrated he's taking a swing at you, you've done the job as a tagger, and that was absolutely brilliant. I thought Corns. If he can do that job again for next week and hopefully the week after, it'll go a long way to us getting further into the finals.
What do we think of Alex Rance's little meltdown in the last quarter there?
Pressure, mate. There's just pressure getting to him, and tired and fatigue, and it's just sport. It's not, he didn't clobber him, so it's not the end of the world.
He stomped on Monfrey's face though.
Yeah, well, who stomped on Westhoff's face? Someone's trod on Westhoff as well.
Or maybe it was Westhoff's face.
Yeah.
It was definitely Rance that did that.
Yeah, well, that was just near the centre square, wasn't it? Outside 50?
Yeah,
that was Westhoff. Yeah,
that was filthy.
Look, in the goal square, I mean, if someone's taking a mark on you in the goal square and you're getting thumped and knocked out of the finals in a game like that, it's like they say, if you give away a 50 and someone's going to kick the ball from the line, you may as well tell the umpire what you think. And I think it was a bit of that. Yep. He just thought, it's not going to matter now. He's kicking it from the goal square. I may as well dump him. I'm not going to lose anything, and I just get a bit of frustration out. So, again, it's just a player who I think has had a really good year. He's been in the All-Australian calculations, and he just could not get anything done against us, and we just frustrated him to the point where he had to lash out and kind of snipe us physically because he couldn't do anything with the football, which is really good to see.
No, that's right.
I just think our in relation to our ball skills, it took me back to the first showdown and probably the Brisbane game where our handling was just pure. When I was watching the game, I was thinking of the Bogues commercial, tipping the impurity into the fresh water and coming out, pure as, and that's how the football was. Maybe the boys were drinking Bogues before the game, and that's what resulted in it. But that's what we were playing in the first half of the year, and I think in a way it was a massive advantage to be playing daytime compared to nighttime, even though there wouldn't be any dew at this time of the year most likely. But so for us again, Freo this week at what is it over there, 5:40ish, that local time, is that right?
Yeah, something like
about that.
Yeah.
So, I know this isn't the preview, but I think, again, it probably works to our favour, that sort of time. We seem to be a more daytime-orientated team in relation to our ball skills. It was, but the ball skills, that it took us back to the first part of the season, and they were crisp, they were clean, the boys were concentrating, and they were efficient and direct, and it was just great to see Jared Pollock come back to form, and people were hastily calling for Jake Need to be dropped after one bad game. We were questioning whether Pollock should be on the side or in the side, and I guess the coaches stuck fat with those players, and we get the results and the fruition of that now, don't we?
Just in relation to that daytime thing, I think Russell Ebert handball says it a lot. In that, when we go into winter, we're going to start doing things like picking Logan because it's a different style of game. And I think we're definitely, with the slick handball and slingshot type play, it's definitely a good weather thing. And having such a beautiful day, just walking into the ground, you got a feeling that it was going to be a good day for us based on that. So I definitely agree with the good weather. And fortunately, September's usually pretty good. Touch wood. So hopefully it stays on.
That's it. Our fantastic leader and captain, Travis Boak, how much more development does he have in him? Can he actually get any better than he is right now? Because he is just phenomenal.
I think so. I think he can probably take it to another level. I think his next achievement will be to play more games like he did yesterday on a regular basis. There are some games where he's brought down, and I mean, I'm not comparing him to Gary Ablett, but if you look at Gary Ablett, who is the top tier of AFL player and what Chris Judd used to be, they would do those performances, or Gary Ablett still does, week in, week out. And, Travis isn't a poor player by any means. He's an elite player, but I guess he can take it up to super elite by just racking up those numbers on a consistent basis. And I can't see why he can't do it. He was fantastic. What do you have, 16 contested possessions yesterday? I think more than
12 clearances.
Yeah, his stats dominated like Richmond as a team almost. I think he was just magnificent, and he took the boys, and it was on a ride with him, and it was interesting on Foxtel during the week in the pre-game stuff when we did actually get a mention outside of Richmond. I think they were talking about tagging Boak, like Ross Lyon will tag Boak over Gray because Boak in the big games averages 10 more super coach points, not that I know much about that stuff, to Robbie Gray. So in the big games, Travis Boak's the one to stand up, and it's testament to him that he's stayed loyal to us, and he's become a fantastic leader, and great captain's performance. He brings me back with all the great captains, and I'm sure he's proud that he's wearing that number 1 on his back, especially with that prison bar Guernsey.
Definitely. Is he the best big game player we've had at AFL level?
It's a big call. Treadray was pretty big.
Yeah. Wangadine as well was a very good big game player. Look, definitely in recent times, he cops a hard tag every week, and I think maybe sometimes we forget just how good he can be. And I think Rick's right that he just needs to develop, breaking that tag and doing it week in, week out. Because when we've seen teams that just decide not to tag him or, forget how good he is and tag someone else, he just destroys teams. That's when he gets his, 40 possession games. And, you've got to sit someone on him, I think. And if you don't, we'll pretty much win the game because he'll control the game through the middle. But I think not only will he get better at breaking a tag as he gets older, but supporting cast around him, the Gray, Wines, Polek, Hartlett, those kind of guys will make it a lot harder for teams to pay that much attention to Boak. And he'll, similar, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but similar to the Geelong midfield, where there was just so many guys contributing that you couldn't really cut them all out, and you pretty much had to go head to head with them. That's what we want to achieve eventually, and I think we've got the base to do it. We've got to continue our development.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good call.
I think it's worth you guys having a quick comment because you didn't say something too much in my love, but how did you guys feel with that?
Well, you had
passage of
about
play?
15 loves, so I didn't know which one we were supposed to talk about.
Well, I'm getting there. I'm talking about the Hamish Hartlett courage going for that 50-50 ball. How did it, mate? How did you guys feel? What were your emotions with that passage of play? That was my play of the day. That was my play of the day.
It was just one of the all-time great Port Adelaide finals moments, I think. Just his courage to do that with the injuries that he's had, especially to his shoulders, and to cop that huge hit, dish off the handball, and then we run into goal. I mean, that was, absolutely the play of the day.
I agree. Just the combination of like a sledgehammer like that, and then just the silk with the handball in the at the same time. There was no kind of, like he did one then the other. He was a sledgehammer in and then bang handball off and perfect, I think that's what Hamish brings up. I'm guilty myself of thinking, maybe we could lure over a Jeremy Cameron. Maybe Hartlett could be one of the ones we look at getting rid of. But I take that back now. He's just developed brilliantly, and he's just a complete footballer. He just can do everything, and the kind of the good looks, mask a very, very tough footballer and a very uncompromising footballer, and someone who, similarly to Gray, now that he's gotten over his injuries, is really starting to show us on a regular basis how good he is. And I just love him as a player. He's just got everything a midfielder needs.
Yeah. He's now the player that we always hoped that he would be.
Yeah.
It was, to me, that the whole passage of play, from it starting until the resultant goal, I looked at Tyler and I said to him, mate, that's probably one of the most purest team goals I've seen in a long time. It epitomised team football, and that's what our first half was pure team football where every player played for each other, willing to sacrifice for each other, and just did everything for the team. If I was to be super critical, I can only think of one maybe little individual moment in that first half where it could have been a bit more team orientated, where Schultz sidestepped the forward and ran into the goal when he probably could have handballed over to Chad, and Chad could have run into an open goal. But I mean, I'm being very nitpicky. That would probably be the only thing in the whole half of football, which was just completely team orientated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Look, let's talk about our best players. El Scorcho, I'll start with you, mate.
You can't go past Boak. I think just led from the front, 12 clearances. The next highest in the game was 4, which was Graham Wines, and then the best for Richmond was 3. He just owned the ball in the middle. He just basically did what he wanted with it, and it's just amazing. I think maybe he doesn't get the. We just expect it from him every week now, and he does it most weeks. He's just a fantastic footballer. I guess outside of him, Jonas, I think, was probably my next best. Just no matter what role we put him in, we can put him on, as a key position defender on a guy much bigger than him. We can put him on a small, like a Ballantyne, or we can play him loose. And I think he was loose for a lot of the game yesterday, and he just handles himself brilliantly. 12 marks across half back, really launching us out of defence. And I really love Jonas as a player. He's been absolutely brilliant this year. One of the stories of the year for us. So I'd say he'd be my next best. But you could throw a blanket over about, pretty much the whole team. It was an amazing team effort.
Rick?
Yeah, I did have the emotional side of me going and saying Jakey Need, but Travis Boak was clearly best on ground, even if you look at it the first half only and not even over the whole game. But I've definitely got Jake Need up there as second best. I thought his game for a small forward was fantastic. He just pressured the whole game, put his body on the line the whole game. and he got the fruits for his hard work with 3 goals. And for a young fella, he could have been overawed by the occasion, and he really stood up and he soaked in the atmosphere, and you could tell he just enjoyed being out there. And he was like a little mini Byron, really. He was. He played, in Byron's
That's exactly
spirit.
what it was.
Yeah,
That's
a really good call.
He played with Byron's spirit, but obviously without the size. But he had the physical presence of what Byron used to play with. It was fantastic. And, I don't really get emotional at football, but if I was going to get emotional, his performance would probably be the thing that would do it. I had Brad Ebert as third best on ground because I thought he dominated that first half with his linkage play and pressure acts. He was right up there. The coaches did a very, very smart move with Tom Jonas and even rotating our loose man. But, Tom Jonas stood up again. He had his downtime when we lost the 2 key defenders. But since those boys have come back, he's become the master loose man defender for us. And then, you could probably have a remaining 18 players going into fifth best. So, I'll probably put the whole team down as fifth best. But Hamish Hartlett, just for his courage, took a gutsy mark, plus that courageous incident. He had a great game.
Yeah,
spot on.
Just to cut in, am I right that we got Homsh and Need for? I think it was the compensation pick we got for Chaplin. Is that right? I believe that's the case. It was one of the Pierce or Chaplin compensation picks. I'd love.
It was a second-round pick.
Yeah, I believe
pick 29 or 28 or something like that.
We got 2 in a row for Pierce and Chaplin in terms of compensation. I'm just really hoping that it was the Chaplin compensation pick that got us Need and Hobbs. It's just the heart and skill and endeavour they put in week out. Even one of them would be miles better than we ever got from Chaplin. To have 2 of them is amazing. So, yeah. We didn't even need Homps on the weekend. He was hard. I thought he was hardly sighted as well for the game. It was just it was a luxury, really. He's a fantastic player for us. Yeah.
I hear frantic typing.
Jack Homps and Jakey Need for pick 29, which was the free agency pick for Daniel Pearce.
Pierce. That's disappointing.
Bugger.
I've got nothing bad to say about Pierce. I'm a Pierce fan. So, well, it would have been a little bit more poetic.
I'll cut this bit out and I'll add it in next week when we beat Fremantle.
Excellent.
Well, look, my best players, you can't go past King Travis Boak. He was just phenomenal on the weekend. Just about the best leader we've had. The things he does in the contest is just brilliant. Tommy Jonas, I won't say much because I think El Scorcho, you summed him up absolutely perfectly. He had a fantastic game on the weekend. 2 times now in the last 3 weeks he's been pretty much best on ground. Jakey Need I had best on ground at half time. I thought he fell out of the game a little bit after that, but his first quarter in particular was the absolute catalyst to us winning that game. He was phenomenal, and he pretty much had a play in every single goal we kicked in that first quarter. Kane Corns for his job on Trent Cotchin was brilliant. And if I was to pick a name as 5th best, I'd probably go Ollie Wines, just because for a second-year player, a 20-year-old kid, 24 touches, 2 goals, 4 clearances, 3 goal assists. He makes me more excited than a Jennifer Lawrence nude shot, this guy.
Really?
Pretty much.
You made me look up those pictures. Those pictures are pretty good.
They're not bad. Ollie Wines is better.
Yeah, it's unbelievable with Wines. Just what we expect him to do week in, week out, given how young he is. If he was half as productive as he is, we'd think he was going to be a really good player. For him to be not just a good young midfielder, but a really good, solid AFL quality midfielder who performs more often than not really well at the age he is. I can't wait till he's 25, 26, and just dominating. So brilliant to see his development.
And what about the Chad's marks?
Stunning.
Yeah.
Although I thought his first grab, the more spectacular one, didn't get the reception from the crowd that I thought it should have.
Yeah, I agree. I think maybe at that point we're all so up and about that that we didn't really have anywhere to go. And I think by the second one, the sting had gone out of the game in the second half, and maybe we'd come down a bit. It was a bit like what will be mark of the year in the St Kilda game, where the game was over. We were just basically counting down time and enjoying ourselves, and then Chad kind of popped up to get everyone back out of their seats, which was really good.
Cheer, cheer the black and the white, honour the Magpies day and by night. Live that long.
Look, let's talk about the SANFL, which was very, very disappointing. It was a 13-point loss. We lost 12 goals 7 to 13 goals 14. Benny Newton was the only multiple goal scorer with 2. Quite simply, you can't expect to win a game, let alone a final, by only playing 20 minutes of good footy.
Yeah, that's exactly
right, mate.
Yeah.
Jinx, you can't talk anymore. I'll tell you can.
Well, that kills the podcast, doesn't it?
Nah, we sort of were a bit complacent, weren't we, Macca and El Scorcho? But I think our reserve side, or our Maggie's team, we are definitely struggling for height, which is starting to hurt us.
Yep.
Yeah.
As soon as Renouf went down, it was always going to spell a bit of a drama for the Magpies in particular, let alone the power side. But I mean, we just don't have anyone of extreme height that can actually play in the ruck. Harvey's doing a decent job in there. Brueggemann's trying his heart out, but they're both not ruck height, and Balderstone absolutely tore us to pieces.
Yeah, it's a killer. I mean, it's just we took the risk at the start of the year, I guess, with only having, on the power list anyway, only having the 3 recognised ruckmen. And it's all well and good having. It might work out really well for us that Harvey plays a year, or half a year as he has, playing a lot in the ruck. It might really develop him as a footballer, and hopefully that's the case. But it's definitely hurt this year in every game. You can't. I guess a lot of other SANFL sides you can just walk over, and it doesn't really matter if you're undersized in one position. But Norwood play probably more than any other SANFL side a real AFL style of game, and they punish you for your mistakes, and they really know how to kind of take advantage of a weakness, and they were really able to exploit that probably more than they have in other games we've played in this year. So it was disappointing.
Yeah. It was almost the exact opposite to what we showed on Sunday at AFL level, where we really struggled for intensity, and I don't think we handled their pressure at all. As was the case in round 1 against Norwood as well. I thought our skills were well down. We weren't hitting our targets. We really struggled for finding targets at half forward, and we were far too loose across half back as well.
And Campbell Heath probably had the worst game back you could possibly have, couldn't you?
I love Campbell Heath. I think he's a great player, but I don't think he probably should have been out there.
And it's not picking on him because he's coming back from a pretty bad injury.
Oh, absolutely. First game back.
But yeah, they exposed
it's not the right game. It's not the right game to play a first player back in a second semi-final against your arch rival. It's
not doing him any justice, really, to be honest. And but yeah, and I mean, look, he wasn't the reason we lost the game, but it was a very noticeable fact at the game, wasn't it? That he was just out of form, understandably so. But he wasn't alone. I mean, I didn't think our pushing AFL players trying to get into the senior side probably created enough influence in the game either. Paul Stewart was okay, but he could have probably done a lot more. Aaron Young was the same, and I thought Benny Newton was the same as well.
I thought Aaron Young was probably our best player. I thought he was our best on ground. Certainly across 4 quarters, he played the best 4-quarter game in the team. Benny Newton had a ripping sort of 30 to 40 minutes there, but fell out of it, especially in the first half, I thought. Tommy Logan was just okay. I thought Brendan Archie's 3rd quarter was the real catalyst to our comeback. And Jarman Impey did a really good defensive job on to start with Phillips, and then he went on to Wilson and shut him out of the game as well. So he's certainly in line for a recall if Whitey doesn't come up. But we just had too many senior players down. I thought Paul Stewart was invisible. I thought Sammy Gray really struggled. Summerton that was his worst game for the year. Cracker was disappointing, and then we just lacked a target up forward. Mason Shaw took a big grab and kicked the first goal of the game, and then was pretty much not seen again from that moment on.
Yeah.
And we allowed Norwood to fit around to the other side way too easily and way too often.
Yeah.
We were almost unaccountable with them transitioning from one side of the oval to the other. And once they got it around, they just sort of tore us a new one going forward.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of our the lower when we were in our AFL side where we were playing badly, where we just couldn't seem to find targets up forward. We couldn't get our run going, and we just seemed to be getting swarmed by the other teams. It reminded me a lot of those, the Collingwood Richmond games, those sort of games. We just couldn't get anything going, and it didn't seem like we were that. We maybe were only 5% off, but that 5% was enough to just make us non-competitive for three quarters basically. So it was frustrating to watch.
The disappointing part for me was that we just didn't really seem to try anything different in that last quarter. It's something that Ford mentioned on the boards as well, is that it really did look like a reserve side out there as opposed to the Port Adelaide Football Club playing in a final.
Yeah.
Because we just didn't, when Norwood got all that momentum going in that last quarter, we just didn't seem to try anything different. We didn't flood the back lines, we didn't flood the midfield, we didn't change players around, we didn't, move players here and there. It was just, let's hope that what we're doing can turn it back around again.
Yeah.
That was the most disappointing part for me.
Is that maybe the perils of the team being a reserve side? So it's
definitely.
It's more about seeing players play their specific role, regardless of the scoreline, to see how they handle the pressure, more so than, okay, well, let's load up with Paul Stewart, Summerton, Slattery in the guts and try and really win this game.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what it's like.
Yeah.
Which is disappointing, but, I guess that's what we've got to get used to, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I guess that's part of the reason the SANFL supporters of the other teams are probably a little bit frustrated, because I guess it does really compromise the competition a bit if that's the case. And I know KT comes out strongly saying that's not the case, but obviously it's natural that is what's going to occur. But I think you were right, Macca. We really miss Butcher's presence, that extra tall in the team.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because we were playing pretty much one key forward for a time there with Harvey in the ruck for a lot of the game, and Brueggemann sort of either down back or on the bench. It was only really sort of Shaw that was staying up forward, which was a bit disappointing, but there you go.
Yeah, look, and as I said, that's the kind of stuff I was complaining about in the AFL side when we were having our low, was that we just didn't seem to have the targets up forward to kick to, and when it's not going right, having your game plan is all well and good, but when it's not going right, you need something else you can do, and we just seemed like it wasn't working for us, and as Macca said, we didn't really try anything else. But we didn't probably have the flexibility in terms of tools to do too much different. I mean, you can chuck different guys behind the ball, but really, we needed someone to kick to, and we needed to be able to hit targets moving forward, and it just wasn't happening for us. And we didn't seem to. It didn't really seem like a good option to move around. And I guess that's what happens when you're not quite tall enough. You just don't have that flexibility.
Yeah.
You know the saying: winners are grinners, and losers can.
And Nord can get.
Damn those bloody red leg.
We'll get him in 2 weeks. We'll get him in 2 weeks.
We'll get him in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
that's it. All right, boys. Well, this has been a long one and a very, very enjoyable one. It was a fantastic weekend.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what we can do this week against Freo.
Hopefully we can roll on with another start like that. If we start the game with the attitude we did against Richmond, we won't go as well because Fremantle are just a naturally better side, but we're definitely a big chance to knock them off if we can start the game like that.
Don't discount us having a blistering start again this week. We almost unleashed it against Freo, but we were pretty wasteful. Yep. So there was some indicators there to show that we almost did it. And I had I was mocked a little bit on the Freo boards today when I said that I think this will be a good rehearsal 2 weeks ago for this week. So don't be surprised, but I'll save it for the preview.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right, boys.
No
Go
worries.
Port
Stay
Adelaide.
the power.
Go the power.
Who delivers beautifully on the chest of Thurston. Pickett with the overlay. Porter away. Byron Pickett, electrifying speed. Runs inside 50.